Today, for the first time ever, we'll take an exclusive look behind the scenes of Colossal Chase, the latest production by Crash Frontier, and give you a glimpse into the dream machine that has captivated audiences worldwide. We'll reveal the secrets behind a variety of stunts, uncover the unnerving working conditions on set, and meet the man who creates those neck-breaking films. From here on, I'll hand it over to today's interviewer, Katie, and, of course, Crash Frontier.
Hey guys, I'm Katie, and I am here with Leo.
Yes, that's my actual name. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching my films.
Very excited for this.
Yeah, me too.
So, what are we going to dive into today? Do you want to give us an overview?
Absolutely, and I'm really excited to share some secrets about how Colossal Chase and my films in general are made, as well as what drives me to send them out into the world from Australia. So we'll dive deep into production, post-production, visual effects, and of course, what went wrong along the way. Action!
This film will have something for everyone. Whether you just love watching movies or behind the scenes, or simply want to get to know Crash Frontier on a more personal level. But before we go behind the scenes, let's quickly recap the story. In Colossal Chase, a massive ship is being hauled up an Italian mountain to be displayed as a monument. But an international terror group called Apocal is not thrilled, as it undermines their credibility. So they fire a missile, causing the trailer to detach from the towing vehicle. Meanwhile, this taxi driver and his passenger tried to overtake the ship convoy just seconds earlier, but were waved back by the police. So the police now think they planted a bomb. All of this leads to a massive chase with the taxi trying to escape the out-of-control ship and the police. We've got highway scenes, bridge scenes, tunnel scenes, and even city scenes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Action! So this has obviously been a very long time coming, but first things first.
Okay.
How do you come up with these ideas? Because I don't think most people look at a physics simulator and think, yay, let's create chaos and shoot a movie.
Well, it's organized chaos, right?
Right.
It's all planned. Nothing really happens randomly, and that's the tricky part here. But I guess what inspires me is the idea of telling a story and sharing it with so many people. And often, like in Colossal Chase, the inspiration actually came from a mod, in this case, the ship. And I didn't have to build that. It was actually made by a very talented modder called Fun Physics. Big shout out to this guy. And when I saw that it came with an optional trailer with wheels, I immediately knew I had something story-worthy. Action!
So, a lot of people are obviously asking, how on earth does he set up these scenes? Because in the end, you're dealing with a physics simulator, right?
Yeah.
So everything kind of has to follow the laws of physics.
Technically, yes, but you can manipulate physics quite a bit in BeamNG, so...
Interesting. So the magic really is in the physics.
Yeah, because there are just so many things that make BeamNG really unique.
How so?
Well, for example, vehicles are made of interconnected nodes and beams, each with, unique weights and strengths. So when vehicles crash, parts break and fall off, so I don't have to handle that part, it's taken care of automatically.
So the main challenge then is coming up with ideas, setting up the scenes, and pretty much making it look like Michael Bay just had a creative exorcism.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that means there must have been at least one scene that drove you absolutely crazy.
Oh, the most difficult scene was definitely the first one.
Really? How so?
Because I had to use 28 buses, each with 2 jet engines attached, all hooked to the ship, to give it the kinetic thrust it needed to be pulled up that mountain.
Wait, what?
I know, it's ridiculous.
But how come we don't see these buses in the film then?
Well, everything you need during the 3D recording of a scene can be hidden in replay, and that's where I choose my camera angles and such. So, the sneaky filmmaker I am, I hid those buses in replay. A simple but effective solution, but it took me 26 takes to get this right, which is why it wins the award for the most annoying scene I've ever had to do.
Oh, great. We'll have to shoot again.
Now, a lot of your work also consists of visual effects and CGI compositing, but the game obviously has never been designed with that in mind, so how does that work? Do you use green screens?
Yeah, I use this tool called Reshade. It's pretty much a post-processing framework that's applied over BeamNG to add green screens in-game. For true VFX though, like explosions and smoke and shockwaves, I mostly use EmberGen, which is a separate software, and there are tons of steps needed to get even the smallest details right, but I'll go more into that later when we talk about visual effects and compositing.
Okay, let's better not spoil too much then. We should probably talk about these intense highway scenes first anyway, so... How did you make sure the ship always stayed on the right path?
That's a really good question.
Because it's on a freaking trailer.
Yeah.
So you can't steer it. And then you got so many cars around it as well.
Yeah, and that was a big problem in the beginning. And with so many cars, like you said, each with its own route, the ship really had to roll the same way every single time. I feel like it's the easiest way is to simply show you guys.
Action!
So, throughout the entire film, the ship has actually been sliding off a ramp in each take, and that ramp had to be repositioned for every section of the movie. And as you can see here, the ship slides along this pretty unusual wall, and that's a zero friction wall. So it has no friction whatsoever, and here's the cool thing, you can actually remove that zero friction wall in replay. This means that during the recording it serves its purpose of sliding the ship along smoothly, but in replay you can take it out, and that's exactly what I did, which is why it appears as though the ship is randomly rolling down the highway.
So it's kinda like with the buses from earlier then?
Yep, you hide what you don't need in replay. And I've applied this system in many of my films. I think the first time I used it was for Runaway Hell, and back then I was looking for something that would let the train slide phenomenally across the highway. And during the shooting process of that scene, there were these zero friction walls and the ground plate. And if you look closely, you can actually see that the car hovers slightly above the ground in a weird way. And that's because it was actually standing on the zero friction plate.
Now, obviously, a train like that or the ship are a big part of such a scene, but what about the cars? The way I understand it is, you need to, I guess, pre-drive the route of every car one by one, right?
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest challenge. Just like in a real movie, stunt drivers need to follow an exact route and keep a consistent speed during action scenes, so that everything plays out exactly as the director envisions it. And funnily enough, it's not that different in BeamNG. The BeamNG World Editor allows you to pre-drive the route of cars, and then when you hit play, all the cars follow the predetermined route. It's a real-time simulation, which means if the computer gets overloaded, some cars might not follow the route as accurately anymore. It's kind of like having some stunt drivers on set who are drunk.
It's almost like you have stunt cars, but no stuntmen, so you have to drive them all by yourself.
One eternity later.
So besides the absolute delight of having to pre-drive each car's route for every scene, the more cars you have in a scene, the more difficult it would have to get for the computer to simulate all of them at once.
Well, like I said, it's a real-time simulator, but it also lets you record at a much slower speed than real-time. For example, simulating at half real-time speed essentially gives you twice the compute time, which works like a performance boost for your computer. So the more cars I have in one scene, the slower I set the simulation speed.
Let's now talk about the 3 most complex scenes in Colossal Chase. Let's start with the overpass bridge scene where the ship literally crashes through, splitting the bridge in half. Now, that probably didn't work right from the start, I imagine.
Oh, no, it definitely didn't. While I was shooting that scene, I noticed that the bridge, guess what, was not designed for a ship to crash through.
Oh.
It would break into 2 parts, yes, but there seemed to be an invisible string keeping these 2 parts together, which always brought the ship to a stop, and it was really frustrating. No matter what I tried, it would not work.
So what is the solution here then?
Well, I was like, okay, what happens if I shoot a second take with the already damaged bridge model from the previous take? Because maybe that invisible string would be gone or weakened enough to actually give way then. And that actually worked. So the invisible string was gone, the ship went through, and I edited both takes together to make it look like it all happened seamlessly.
Look at that. Is it weird to say it would be kind of cool to see that in real life?
Well...
On an actual movie set, I mean.
Phew! You just saved yourself there, didn't you?
Maybe.
No, please, go on.
So, what I've always wondered about is your level of motivation for such choreographies as a whole. You have so many cars in one scene, but then the bridge doesn't give way. Like, that would be pretty annoying.
Yeah, but in the end, that's what makes it so fun. Having an idea and thinking, how can I get this done, or find a workaround for problems like the bridge, for example.
And on that note, let's talk about that tunnel scene, please, because that was on another level. So the chase goes on, and there's this tunnel with an over-tunnel parking lot up ahead. Coming up with that idea and making it work must have been a beautiful nightmare, I guess. So talk us through the process.
So the whole reason for this scene was that I wanted the taxi to land on the ship, so I had to create something that would make sense in the context of the film. But that also meant that everything had to be destructible in that scene, right? And I couldn't find a suitable floor for that, so I actually decided to use a bridge mod, which, when stacked side by side and with guardrails removed, actually turned out to be the perfect parking lot floor. Mind you, the final goal was for the taxi to land on the ship, right? So let's see if that worked out.
Here it goes. What?
And I was
no
like,
way.
No. Why?
But in the film, the taxi clearly lands on the ship.
Yeah, but there was no way I would ever get that close again, The shot was otherwise perfect, so I decided to use it, but I still needed to shoot the touchdown separately, which required its own setup.
I can tell.
And rerun.
What the heck? That, may I just say, looks absolutely hideous.
Thank you. That's true behind the scenes footage. The challenge here was that the taxi needed to touch down in a way that would perfectly match the last frame of the previous shot. So obviously that one did not work.
And considering the amount of individual parts at play that you can't control because it's a real-time physics engine.
Oh, yeah, it's continuous trial and error. But that's what makes it so fun, in my opinion.
This one looked pretty spot on with the shot before.
And then I just had to combine the two takes and make it look seamless again.
Pretty clever. So since the taxi had already landed on the ship, were you able to continue the shot for when the ship crashes out of the tunnel?
No, and it's not even the same tunnel.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I had to reposition the entire tunnel for that coming out sequence because the landscape looked much better on the other side, with the highway being tucked between those two hills.
Well, see, that's what I mean. It's those little things that none of us thinks of when watching. The entire tunnel sequence was pretty much 3 different stages, 2 different locations. It's quite impressive. Now, I totally get that setting up scenes like this is incomprehensibly complicated. But your computer, come on, your computer must have had a really hard time too.
Oh, it definitely did.
So, is it actually a NASA PC? Are the rumors true?
Yeah, they're actually true. They handed it to me in 2023 and said, "You're on a secret mission now, son. Never reveal those specs." But there you go. Secret's out.
There you have it, people. The secret has been revealed. Now, let's talk about the final scenes. And we can't really discuss them without addressing the topic of world building. You build or set up these environments, like the highway, the tunnel, and the city as well. Why and how?
Well, first of all, I need a movie set that fits my narrative, right? But secondly, I've always loved games like SimCity and City Skylines, and each map in BeamNG comes with its own assets and buildings as well, so I use them and place them one by one, which is painstaking work to make it look natural. And other assets, like the arc you see here, they're actually imported from different maps. And the whole idea behind this city setup was to create a city center that looks real, but still has enough space for the ship to crash through.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Like, you gotta build the city around the ship, pretty much.
And it's essentially a movie set, you know? It only needs to look great on screen, not function as a real city.
Oh, wait, look who's here. The Pigeon, indestructible daredevil, lovable misfit, and undoubtedly luckiest bird on wheels.
Thank you so much for that intro. That was hilarious. Best intro I've ever heard, by the way. So yeah, this character has been in most of my films. With total impact, he even got his own movie about his lucky streaks, and surprise, surprise, I voiced him in every single one of my films.
Ooh, reverse voice reveal.
Indeed.
I love this guy.
Scene 14, take 6. And action!
God, this sequence must have been total hell to create.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the toughest. I had to line up not just the ship, but also get the train moving in time and make sure that the ship hits 2 specific train cars. But then I found out that the white minibuses on those train cars kept causing the entire simulator to crash.
Ah, well, there we go, again.
Yeah, so I had to come up with an alternative. Which in the end turned out to look much better anyway.
Yeah, more parts flying around is always the better choice. Oh wow, like how many times exactly did you have to do this?
Well, a couple of times. You know, it goes section after section, so once a section is finished, I continue with the next section, and then I have to reshoot that again, and like, for example, here, whoops, the entire city part wasn't built yet, so I first had to build that one and then reshoot from there, pretty much.
Damn, that's a good shot. Can't remember seeing that one in the film. Just saying.
Well, you know, it's always tough to find the right camera angles, and I admit, I reopened the 3D file to shoot some extra shots for you guys. Fun fact, actually, ever since that last fall onto the building, it was all done within the first take. Can you believe it? I only needed 1 take for that final section.
Probably the only shot where that ever happened.
Sadly, that's true.
Before we say it's a wrap, let's talk visual effects. Did-a-dum.
Let's go.
Well, where should we even begin? Or better yet, where do you begin?
Well, it all starts with setting up the continuity. So all the cars have to be repositioned and damaged so it looks like the ship just literally smashed through the area, when in fact it's a completely new scene. And in this scene, the sheriff will be hit by a missile that he himself ordered to be fired at the ship.
Major plot twist there.
So for the actual explosion scene, the missile launcher was about 40 meters away from the car, and I used a variety of different exports: green screen, blue screen, a version with light effects for the explosion created in-game, and the other cars near the sheriff got some kinetic help too, from propan tanks scattered around in the area.
And action!
Huh, so they're your sneaky little helpers.
Correct. And then comes the actual explosion creation in EmberGen. Now, all I can say is it does take time to learn it, but it's a fantastic software, the best out there for anything explosion, fire, or smoke related. And once I have the perfect explosion, which can take a couple of hours, I export it and layer it over or under the BeamNG footage. And that's where green screen, masking, and all of that comes in. And it's never easy, but in the end, all of this is self-taught, out of passion. You know, I never took a course for VFX.
And action!
Sure, but still, it's quite fascinating to see the actual intricacies of it all.
Yeah, well, there have been quite a few green screen moments.
There's definitely more green screen than I thought there was.
Yeah.
Also, in such unexpected moments, maybe not this one, but
Haha, tricked.
yeah.
But in the end, you know, VFX isn't everything. It's a mix of story, of pacing, of dynamic. You know, when I started with Final Attack, I had no idea how to create this massive 3-stage explosion. No idea whatsoever. It was all learning by doing.
So the main thing is passion and patience, really.
Yeah.
All right. My final question for today is, which of your films is your favorite?
Oh my god, that is the most difficult question ever.
Sorry.
I guess my favorite film is always the one that I'm currently working on, and that really is true because I've poured my heart and soul into these films, you know, so they're all special to me in their own way. And I hope that you guys, yes, you watching, feel the same about some of them, because in the end, that's the only reason why I'm doing this.
Any last words before we wrap this up?
Yes, thank you so much, guys, for 4 years and for being such an awesome community.
Also, a huge thanks from me, everyone. Had a great time. Take care.
And please tell me in the comments which behind the scenes moment surprised you the most. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys.